Hi, I'm Matt Farmer. I'm a Senior Program Manager for Azure API Management. I'm going to talk to you about the Azure API Management Analytics solution template for Power BI. So what is this template? It gives you some really great eye-catching reports in Power BI that you can share with your business users. The reports are completely customizable. We create the data store for you, but it's yours. You can do what you want with it and change the reports any way you wish to highlight the things that are important to you and your business users. It gives you some insight into traffic, errors, and patterns, and allows Azure API Management customers to do something extra with their API data. So let's talk a little bit about what is actually in this solution template and what we deploy to you. Now, hopefully you already have an Azure API Management instance that you're using. If you don't, you'll need to create one and add some APIs to it. We then create a pipeline so that we extract data from Azure API Management. We have a global policy that uses log to Event Hub, and then take data, push it into Event Hub, which is then streamed by Stream Analytics into Azure SQL. Power BI then calls views on Azure SQL to generate the reports. We've added some extra parts to this as well. So we've used Azure Machine Learning and Azure Functions to analyze the data and create some extra report data that may be useful for you for looking for anomalies or patterns in the way in which your APIs are used. Let's go and have a look at the actual reports themselves. So here we are in Power BI. We're looking at the reports as they're set up, and obviously the API management instance this report is connected to has a number of weeks of traffic pushed through it. When you start, you might not see quite so much, but it will build up quickly. So this report is at a glance, and it's really a business dashboard of what's been going on with your APIs. And you can see there's information about the traffic you've had today, whether that's incoming traffic, errors from your backend, or errors from API management, what sorts of response codes you're getting from your backend, and a graph that represents the traffic. We've also got some KPIs here that you can alter the KPI targets, but we're looking for regular growth week on week and reduction in errors week on week. And the same with API response time, trying to reduce that. Obviously, if you know Power BI, you know that you can filter and make changes, and this report is no different. So I can click on a particular operation, for example, and all the statistics will change based upon that operation. The API calls report is a much more in-depth look at that data with lots of things you can customize to look at individual parts of your API traffic. Obviously, we have a map showing you where calls are coming from. We can click on a particular operation and it will filter the data that's displayed on the screen. We can also use these slicers to narrow this down by a particular API, for example. We can apply multiple slicers, so we can set API, operation, product, or subscription as well. So for example, I can see what Fred Jones is doing in Big Conference API. Finally, in this control, we also are able to filter by date. So you can select a particular number of days, and then see the traffic based upon that. If we move to the errors report, we have a similar concept of slices, and we have data for backend API errors, and we also have data for API management gateway errors. We show the last 10 errors for your backend API, and you can filter that down by particular operation or person. So for example, if a particular subscription holder was reporting they were getting an error, let's say Jane Brown was reporting errors, we can go and see what's happening with Jane Brown's calls. And you can see here, they're only getting errors from session get by ID, and you can see the status code that's coming back for that. The call frequency page uses some data science techniques to push the data together to give us an insight into where we may be seeing patterns or anomalies in how people are calling your API. So we use what's called a fast Fourier transform. to take details about particular IP addresses calling your API and then creating a graphical summarization of how that's happened over time. And you can use this to look for particular patterns. So for example, if we look at this particular IP address, you can see that the pattern of calls here goes from dark to light in a very rhythmic pattern. This might suggest that this IP address, is calling the API using a bot or a script. Now that may be entirely what you expect, it may not be, but this report allows you to look for those particular issues. If we click on the particular IP address, select it, we can see all the subscription holders who are calling us from that IP address. You can find out what they're doing is as expected. Finally, the relationships page shows you in a graphical format the correlation between particular API calls. So we look for an API call being called and then subsequently another API being called within a 1 second window. And we do this overall in this window. And we do this from the same IP address in this window. We can also filter out using the slicers for particular operations. So for example, if we wanted to see get open orders, what correlation that had to another API call. You can see from the table on the right, there's a 90% probability that get open orders will be called with get order. And other APIs, 0% probability. So we've never seen that happen. You can use this information to optimize your API calls. For example, if you see that there's always a correlation between one API being called than another, you may want to change your API structure to optimize the request response flow. So that's been a quick tour through the Azure API Management Analytics Power BI solution template. Thanks for watching. Find out more about solution templates in the Power BI community at community.powerbi.com. Find out more about Azure API Management on our blog at blogs.msdn.microsoft.com/API Management.